Chapter 1. Xana's Fear. The last few days' rain had dissolved the snow, and the tree-lined paths were covered in mud as sticky as glue. The dark gray sky called for yet more rain. The Caddick Park surrounded the three kids, stretching to the imposing rock wall and the iron fence crowned by the symbol of the establishment. To its right stood the school buildings, the student residencies, the administration offices, the science laboratories, the classrooms, the cafeteria, and the gymnasium. They were positioned like the prongs of an enormous fork between which the three quadrangles were situated. Aelita Hopper was walking in silence beside her friends, Jeremy Belpaw and Eva Skinner. Together they made a very odd group. Aelita, small and with fiery red hair and a pixie cut, was wearing a heavy winter jacket with feathers of the same lively red color. Eva, however, was taller and more strikingly beautiful. She had short blonde hair, eyes clear as crystals, and perfect lips. Then there was Jeremy, with his typical large cardigan and usual round geeky glasses sitting slightly off-kilter on his nose. The young boy trembled. I should have worn a warmer jacket. I'm not cold, remarked Eva. Me neither, confirmed Aelita without paying too much attention. She was thinking that her father must have also been to this place before leaving with her to the virtual world. After that, Aelita remained trapped in Lyoko for 10 long years, but without growing older by even a single day. She was supposed to be 23 years old, however. She was only 13 now. The more that she thought about it, the more that it seemed like a crazy story to her. Her father, on the other hand... Jeremy was observing her fixedly, eyes full of concern. Do you have something to tell me, Aelita? He asked her. The young girl nodded. What she might discover ahead scared her, but she felt that it was time to clear things up. A day has already passed since I found the secret room in the Hermitage and the replica, she recalled. And up until now, I could only explore the first level of my father's journal. Jeremy nodded in silence, pensively. All right, shouldn't we start our exploration now? The young girl concluded. Aelita had entered the journal the other day, and like a ghost she could observe with her own eyes several fragments of the history of her father and her mother, and Thea. And now, when she felt close to finding answers, Jeremy seemed to be backing out for a reason that she didn't understand. We shouldn't yet, replied the schoolboy. First, we need to be sure that... This is about my father, Jeremy, the young girl exploded, and he is dead, and I don't have any idea where my mother is. Okay, surrendered Jeremy, protecting himself with his hands. You're right, he continued immediately, while smiling at her tenderly. Just let me complete the final verifications. Tonight we'll meet in my room with all the others, and I promise you that after that we'll enter the second level of the replica and we'll discover what's in the final part of your father's journal. It's just that it isn't so simple. You need to be a little patient. His friend tried to argue with him, but Jeremy started to head down the path to return to the dorms, hands in his pockets and his neck embedded in his shoulders to protect himself from the cold. Aelita sighed. Jeremy was her best friend, and maybe even more than that, but he could be really stubborn. How about continuing your walk with me? She then asked Eva. Sure thing. Eva Skinner seemed like a young girl like a lot of others, who, at the time, instead of studying, was spending her afternoon with a friend in the school's park. Behind this angelic face, though, hid a secret that her friends didn't even suspect existed. It was a dangerous secret that lay nested in her for some time now and that obligated her to act and speak in the name of someone else, or rather, something else. Xana had indeed possessed the young girl, bending her to his will, but at this exact moment the artificial intelligence inside of her was yelling. Why had she accepted this walk with Aelita, and why hadn't she already attacked her, also giving her the dark kiss that would allow Xana to take over her body? With Aude de la Robia, that would have been very simple. The truth was that Xana didn't want to do it, not to Aelita, and this reluctance, which wasn't absolutely rational, made him furious, but the rage also wasn't in the nature of an artificial intelligence. Xana didn't have feelings. He wasn't programmed to have them, so in this case, why did he feel this strange warmth when Aelita had asked Eva, and him in extension, that they should continue to walk together? Stop, spoke Xana. 56,780 times 75,678 equals 4,296,996,840. Good, at least his ability to calculate was functioning correctly. 6 times 2 equals 12. Xana reflected on it for a fraction of a second as it paralyzed. 6 times 2 equals 12, he repeated again. The result was correct, of course, but the problem was elsewhere. He didn't calculate it through multiplication, he based it on memory. And not his memory, but on the memories of Eva Skinner. What could that mean? What was happening to him? When he had possessed the spirit and body of Eva, Xana wasn't much more than a digital fragment desperately navigating in the unrestrained sea of the internet, searching for fragments that he lacked, dispersed in the ether. Hopper and the children had dealt him a hard blow, and even though they didn't completely eliminate him, they had managed to destroy his core. But then what? What exactly would happen to him next? Maybe it was that he hadn't taken possession of Eva, who was also prevailing over him. And that was a problem. "Is everything all right?" Aelita asked him. Xena looked surprised at the young redhead who was walking by his side. He had definitely been distracted and distant for too long, and she had taken notice. Yes, Eva scrambled to say. "I was thinking about what Jeremy said." "Yes, me too. It makes me angry," sighed Aelita, taking her friend's hand in her own. Xana realized that Eva's fingers were covered in sweat and jumped. Disgusting human emotions! He'd had trouble controlling them for some time now. He hadn't the slightest idea why. All he could do was stay on his guard and find a way to enter the replica in the Hermitage with these stupid kids. If that worked out well, he could return to Lyoko. And then things would really change. He would no longer be a ridiculous cross between a human and a computer. He would rid himself of this insignificant girl, and he would be Xana once more. And only Xana, indisputable lord of the virtual world and the future master of the real world. At more or less 6 in the afternoon, the Caddick library was empty. There was only Ulrich and Yumi left inside, sat one facing the other with their heads buried in their books. Yumi was concentrating on her studies. She was 1 year older than her friends, so she was in a higher level class than them, and the day after she would have a more complicated history exam. As for Ulrich, well, he didn't have any exam on the horizon, but he couldn't miss out on the chance to spend some alone time with her. Yumi lived with her parents not too far from the establishment, and during the afternoon she didn't usually stay at Caddick. He absolutely had to take advantage of this opportunity. Ulrich raised his head from the books and looked at her. Yumi was tall and thin, and had long black hair and 2 almond eyes that seemed full of intriguing things. She was dressed in black like usual, and her brow was furrowed. She was gorgeous. "Hey, why are you staring at me so much for?" she asked suddenly. Nothing, jumped Ulrich, starting to splutter. I was thinking about Odd. Don't you think he's acting a bit too strange lately?" Yumi set aside the history book for a moment. "It's everything that's happening to him. He's in love," she declared. "It seems like he and Eva are serious." Ulrich still wasn't totally convinced, and he shook his head. It wasn't just that he was acting passionately for the beautiful North American girl who had been in their class for several weeks now. "What's going on?" Yumi pressed. "You should be happy for your best friend to finally stop acting like Don Juan with the first girl that passes by and for managing to find a girlfriend." "But do you realize how they look at each other?" insisted Ulrich. "It always looks like they're sharing some sort of mysterious secret, and sometimes Eva starts a sentence and Odd finishes it as if they were thinking the exact same thing." "Well, that would be because they were made for each other." Ulrich sighed. He and Yumi were also made for each other. He didn't have the slightest doubt, though he never could understand what she really wanted. However, despite the fact that he had known her for a long time, this young girl was indecipherable to him. "Hey, guys!" a voice called to them from the back of the library, and Odd was there with his usual lively smile and clothes. His hair, a bright blonde color, was shaped rigidly to a peak on his head as if he had been in a dynamite explosion. "Speak of the devil," mumbled Ulrich, resting against the back of his chair. "What are we saying about what devil?" asked Odd with curiosity, while sitting down, straddling a chair and beginning to carefully observe a book that Yumi had. Strange, history had never been his favorite subject, although, to be honest, he didn't particularly have one. "Have you heard the news?" he exclaimed right away. "Jeremy wants all of us to meet up together in his room tonight. To your stations." "Seriously?" sighed Ulrich. "Well, he never told me anything." "Me neither," said Odd, while giving a slap on the shoulder. "But he told Eva and Aelita." Ulrich threw a look towards Yumi, but the young girl was already turned towards Odd. "Well, I think it's a really good idea. Things keep getting more and more complicated." "Yeah!" exclaimed Odd, while getting to his feet again as if in a rush. "Are you going to tell us where you're rushing off to like that?" Ulrich asked. "Some question! I'm going to see Eva, of course." Ulrich rolled his eyes, while Yumi tried to hold back a small giggle. Jeremy's room in the student dormitories was one of the rare single rooms reserved for male students. It was a bedroom adorned with a poster of Einstein hanging above the head of the bed, and his pajamas were nicely stacked under the pillow. However, the desk, unlike the rest of the room, was the definition of chaos and disorder, and seemed on the point of breaking under the weight of several keyboards, screens, and other more varied computer hardware. Jeremy finished writing something and turned back to his friends. He looked at them one by one. Aelita, obviously, Ulrich and Yumi, and next Odd and Eva. Richard Dupuis, the young man who was 10 years older and who had been a classmate of Aelita's at Caddick in the past, was also present, except that Aelita, trapped on Lyoko, hadn't continued to grow, and Richard, on the other hand, had, which is why he was more than 20 years old. He was the only adult amongst them, even though he was looking around with the same lost air of a little boy. "All right, boss," commenced Ulrich, ready to start the party. Jeremy opened the closet that took up a wall of the room and took from it a poster that he had made during the afternoon. He asked Aelita to help him stick it to the wall with Scotch tape. That seems rather complex, commented Richard. Jeremy looked at him with his head askew. In reality, the poster was rather simple. He had written down 4 key points and connected them to each other with a sequential algorithm. It was so much of a struggle to make it clear. Okay then, I'll get to explaining it, the kid rushed to exclaim when he noticed the perplexed look on Ulrich's face. Excellent idea, smiled Yumi. On the poster, several words could be read. 1. Dossier. 2. First City. 3. Mirror. 4. Richard Dupuis. Jeremy grabbed a marker and highlighted the first number of the paper. I tried to organize everything a bit that we found up until now. I'm convinced that we are facing a series of tracks left by Franz Hopper. And now we should assemble them like the pieces of a puzzle. In first place, Professor Hertz's dossier that contained a series of the Hoppix code. The programming language with which Professor Hopper built Lyoko is very difficult, so much so that I still haven't managed to understand what these codes are for. Anyway, in the dossier, there was also an address that we followed. Jeremy stopped, marker in the air, searching for the second number. Number 2, a replica that contained a rough copy of the virtual world that I've called First City. What a great waste of imagination. Bravo, dear sir, commented Ulrich, provoking laughter. Jeremy, however, remained more serious. In reality, he continued, it's the name that Hopper was using too, in his journal. Whatever the case, Ulrich and Yumi entered the First City by using the scanner they found in Brussels to virtualize themselves, but they didn't manage to discover anything. The men in black appeared, protested Yumi. They were chasing us down. Jeremy raised his hand to call for silence. If you continue to interrupt me, we'll never finish. Let's leave the commentary for later, okay? Everyone agreed, and Jeremy continued his discourse, which he had prepared nicely. All right, so let's see the numbers. 1, the dossier. 2, the First City. Next comes number 3. In other words, the replica that Aelita found in the Hermitage. Seeing as it's a journal that reflected upon several moments in the life of Professor Hopper, I have called it the Mirror. Everyone agree? His friends didn't even flinch. Okay, everyone's in agreement then. So finally, we arrive at number 4, the cards that appear on Richard's palm computer. Each screen of data starts with the word Aelita, but the rest is code written in Hoppix. We don't know what they do. Heck, to tell the truth, I don't even know if they're a complete program or only a fragment of some more complex piece of software. But I'm willing to bet that whatever it is, that the code has something to do with Lyoko. Jeremy stopped to catch his breath and traced the marker next over a line that went from point 2 to 3, from the First City to the Mirror. When Aelita showed me the second secret room of the Hermitage, he explained, I suspected something right away, and this is the reason that I prevented her from entering the second level of the journal yesterday. I wanted to confirm my idea. To give it to you briefly, below the Hermitage, there's a scanner that provides access to the mirror, but there's no supercomputer. Aelita jumped up. What are you saying? She protested. The journal is a virtual reality generated by a computer, so there must be a computer. Exactly, confirmed Jeremy calmly. But this computer isn't at the Hermitage. All that's there is a simple terminal. And this isn't all. Based on the descriptions by Yumi and Ulrich, I don't believe there was a supercomputer at Brussels either. In short, guys, we're speaking of a machine that's much more complicated and much larger. It occupies the whole floor of the factory. It's impossible to just hide one here and there. And so? Insisted Aelita. Well, that's the big discovery. The First City and the Mirror are only sandboxes. Sometimes programmers introduce a sort of operational core to computers completely separate from the rest. It's a protected space where any such experiments cannot damage the rest of the system, precisely like a sandbox that children play in at the park. In English, it's like constructing a computer first and then adding another smaller one. The others exchanged confused looks. They maybe didn't understand all the details, but the main concept was clear to them. The sandbox theory explained a lot of things that had remained in the dark the whole time before. Hopper made precisely that, Jeremy continued. Inside the supercomputer in the factory, he created 2 sandboxes. The First City and the Mirror. The scanners at the Hermitage and the primitive materials at Brussels do nothing more than connect to the supercomputer at the factory thanks to a high-security wireless network which then accesses these 2 cores. Stop, sighed Ulrich. You're starting to give me a headache. I get it, murmured Odd, on the other hand. The other stared at him, surprised. In general, the young boy was a genuine idiot when it came to technology. All right, let him finish, Eva then exclaimed. Yes, of course. Well, Jeremy struggled to continue. We would have shut down the supercomputer totally convinced that we had deactivated it forever. But in reality, we didn't realize that there was a hidden protection system that continued to supply energy to 2 sectors of the computer. These should be the two cores of the first city in the mirror, and, in my opinion, the sandboxes weren't there by coincidence. They were tracks purposely left by Hopper." "To tell us what?" asked Yumi. "I don't have the slightest clue, but tomorrow afternoon, after class, we can discover what's on the second level of the mirror. What do you all say?" The others smiled and Jeremy relaxed.